you everybody for coming out. This is special. First, I always have to thank my wife, who without her, I'd be naked in the tree right now. Okay. Thank you to all the assistant coaches, who some we just met, but they're all just tremendous people. I think Dave moved into the locker room. I think that's his new office now. He never leaves. I can't get there earlier than him. It's amazing. And Paul's a blessing. He literally fell from heaven and is helping our program in so many ways, and all the other folks. The Gridiron Club, just amazing. Brandon, who put this all together, okay, like a wizard or something. I don't know where you got all these baskets and all this great stuff and the food, but that's what this is all about. I know the coaches, Brandon, and everybody, it's about building community. It's about building family. There's some family right there. You've got the baby going there too. And why I wanted everybody to come here tonight is to understand why we do this. Okay, yes, I would love to win a state title, let's keep it real. But the real reason we play football is because it not only can change lives for the better, it can save lives. All right? How do I know this? Because I would be dead in a ditch right now if it wasn't for football. Okay? If it wasn't for my high school football team. And I just want to share you my story that I wrote in that book, How to Beat Stalin, Hitler, and the Sunset Club. That's the best title you ever heard, right? That's going to make it. What happens when you get hit in the head too many times? You come up with something. But it all starts out, with me growing up on Long Island. We left the Bronx back in 1974. Anybody here from the Bronx? Any Bronx people? Woo! Okay.
I do.
Yeah? Oh, all right, there we go. Right here, found it. And the reason we left, it was nice, but it was on fire. So that's always a rule. When the neighborhood's on fire, maybe it's time to go. And we packed up and we went out. It was me, my mom, my dad, my little sister Janine, and we moved out, and we were living the idyllic life. A lot of noise coming from over here. And, we're living the American dream, right? We got the quarter-acre lot, right? The white picket fence, the 2 kids, and we're doing it. And when I was about 5, my mom went out to work, my dad went out to work, and I'm being watched by my one of my grandmas, my grandma Ida. Knock came on the door. Police. My father was killed in a car wreck on the Southern State Parkway. And from there, the idyllic dream was shattered, and things just kept getting progressively worse and worse for us. As I grew up, I was learning disabled. Had trouble reading, had trouble writing. I couldn't spell cat if you bought me a vowel. Had to take off my shoes to count to 20, struggling. I was an awkward kid. I was overweight. I was being bullied constantly. And by the time I got to middle school, I was really staring into the abyss. I was saying, why do I want to get up in the morning? I had no reason to go on. How could my life moving forward be anything but pain and suffering? And that's when I started to have some midnight chats with my mother. My mother and I both were insomniacs. She was stressed, I was stressed. And I'd sit at the kitchen table with her late at night. And she was a great mom. Like many of you women are here. And, my mom believed that I was the best, I was the most beautiful, right? And she was crazy, because your mom's crazy, right? Crazy, right? We're all crazy, our kid can't do anything. And you would fight and kill it for your kid. But my mom saw that all her praise and love wasn't making a dent. And so she finally got a little tough with me. And she said, you're not the only person who's ever had adversity. You're not the only person who's had some tough times. In fact, she said, I'm going to tell you a little story about your babcia, about my Ukrainian grandmother. That's the word for grandmother, babcia. Boris is a Ukrainian name. And I said, well, tell me about it. My babcia, I never really got to know. She died in a car crash with my father. I And I said, great. And I never really knew her because she died when I was only about 5. I only knew her as the nice lady who made apple strudel. Because when you're a chubby kid, that's how you identify people. What pastry they came, right? And so I go, tell me about Bobson. She goes, you know what? She was a superhero. What do you mean she was a superhero? She had like Spider-Man, she had this, webs. Now, when she was your age, she wasn't worried about being overweight or bullied. She was worried about starving to death. Because in Ukraine back then, it was the time when the Soviet Union had taken over, and Stalin was trying to break them to his will to impose communism on that great country, and he enacted what was known as the Holodomor, or Great Hunger. And he surrounded the country with the Red Army, took out all the food. And over about a year's time, 5 to 6 million Ukrainians starved to death. All right? And imagine being a family like that, where you're just watching your friends and neighbors and one just waste away to nothing. My grandfather had to fight off roving bands of cannibals. Let that sink in. The next time we're worried about some mundane problem, roving bands of cannibals. And that's what she had to endure. And they endured it together as a family. And after about a year, Stalin felt he had sufficiently punished them, and it was over. And then years went by, the family starts getting up on their feet, and then 1939, Hitler's master of Germany. And he starts World War II. And in 1941, he invades the Soviet Union. It's Operation Barbarossa. It's the largest land battle in the history of the world. And there in the front lines is my Babcia. And she's immediately captured. Okay, the Nazis invade, Hitler invades, they capture her, they execute her family right in front of her, and she's off to a work camp. She wasn't Jewish, so it wasn't the death camp, but what people don't always know, Ukrainians, Slavs, Poles, they were all on the list. They were just a little bit after the Jewish folks. And she was a slave for the rest of the war. And I couldn't believe this. It was not processing in my head that my grandmother, my Babcia, was a slave. And I said, how the hell did she deal with slavery? And she said when she got to the camp, she was all by herself, no family, no nothing. And immediately some of the old women in the camp, the babushkas with the headscarf, they came over to her and they put one on her immediately. She was like a beautiful teenage girl. She wasn't a Babcia yet. And put that on. They say, hunch down. And they wiped animal manure on her. I said, why would they do that? They said so she would smell, so the guards wouldn't rape her. And that's what she had to endure all this time in this Nazi camp. And it was amazing. I'm like, how is she doing this? She had support from these old women who cared. Did they have to care? It was the right thing to do. And she met her husband there, Eustace. And, being young people, they had my father. My father was actually born into slavery. And then before you know it, the war was over. Hitler committed suicide, and they were able to outlast not one, but 2 evil dictators. And they did it by finding relationships, by building communities, some very unusual, and they got through it together. And now the war was over, they started trying to build their lives in a very ruined Europe. And they were actually making bathtub wine. And they were selling it to soldiers. And one day, there's a knock on the door. My grandfather, Eustace, goes to get it. They were out of wine. A gunshot rings out. He's dead. And my Babcia now is sitting there with 2 children. She had she was pregnant with a 3rd miscarriage. And she's by herself. No friends, no family, no husband. 2 kids in war-torn Europe. A priest, a Ukrainian Orthodox priest, takes mercy on her. God knows how to get her on a boat, ship her off to Philadelphia. She lands. She gets off the boat. Can't find her contacts. Has no idea where these people are. And her first night in America, she can't speak the language, has no money, and they sleep on a park bench with the 2 kids. She pulls them in tight. They stuff their clothes with garbage, with newspapers. I go, Ma, she must have been terrified. She goes, no. She wasn't terrified. She was excited because this was a good start. She finally had a chance for that great life that had been denied to her in Europe. Let me tell you, a chance is all you need. And she took advantage of this chance. She worked her ass off. She had to put the boys in an orphanage. where they had a fight. You know, it's a horrible place. And they eventually worked themselves up, and by the time she passed away, she owned her house, she remarried, had a small business, and got to meet 4 grandkids. And that's how you beat Stalin and Hitler. You don't quit, you fight, and you have a great life. And you have a great life. And that was my option. Now I'm sitting here, I'm a fat kid, you know, crying, oh, I'm being bullied. I said, you know what? If she can do that, I gotta get off my ass and do something. I'm not just gonna hear roll over and up. And I realized, you know, if I go and kill myself, Stalin and Hitler win. All that she went through, pulling herself out of the bloodlands of Europe, what the hell was it all for if I just roll over and die? But what's up is I'm 12, I'm fat, I can't read. She goes, you gotta play some football. Okay? And the men who coached me showed me how to be great, showed me how to be successful. All right? And that's what this is all about. Okay? Changing lives, and in my case, saving lives. And the first day I get out there, I'm a fat kid, I'm going to run a lap. And it felt like the Boston Marathon. And I'm running, whoo, you know, I'm fat, and Doritos are falling out, dry heaving, Skittles everywhere, right? And, you know, our captain, this kid Jason, who was built like a Greek god, you know, and he runs, he grabs me, and he literally pulls me, I think he carried me half the way across the finish line. And he goes, listen, you're not quitting. And our slogan on the team was Brothers Forever. That once you join, you're part of a family, okay? And part of something special. And from that moment on, my life began to change. You know, I was the worst kid, and I was fat. They didn't even have a belt for me. So when I got hit, my pants would fall off. You know, I was the worst kid, and I get called into the coach's office, and I think they're going to cut me, right? Because I'm half naked on the field half the time, going up and dropping skills. And they go, hey, great job. We love you. Keep working hard. You know, when they said, yeah, your pants, you've fallen off, that's good. But, you know, it only fell off twice today instead of 6 times. You're making progress, and you're getting better. And incrementally in my life, I started getting help in school. My mom got me diagnosed as learning disabled, and I started getting help there. Got a resource room, and teachers started helping me. I started working. I got a work ethic. So you just don't work hard on the field, you work hard in the classroom. And things started to change. Next thing you know, I'm elected captain for my senior year. Girls were saying hello to me. I didn't know what to do. Hi, can I smell your hair? I had no dating. Coach Dave, that's a good pickup one. That's the guy who talks to. And slowly but surely, things got better. To a point where my crazy mom says, hey, you know what? You're going to play in college. You're going to get a scholarship. You're going to go to a great school. You're going to live happily ever after. And still at this point, that seemed completely preposterous, but that's what she believed. And because she was crazy, I started to believe it too. And then one day, my junior year, I get called out of class by the principal. I was knocking on the door. And I go, ooh, this is it. A college scout must be here. Woo! Let's go. And we go to the office, and he says, Steve, it's not a scout. There was a car wreck. Your mom's dead. And I was back at the abyss again. Okay? Just like Babcha had Stalin and Hitler, I had 2 car wrecks. This was in front of the 7-Eleven. And I was at the abyss again. I was ready to take a long walk off a short pier. And what saved me? What kept me on track? Folks like this in this room. The families, the community. Okay? The players, the parents, the teachers. People I don't even know came to my rescue. Some did big things, some just did little things. My girlfriend at the time, her mom let me drive the car for my driving test. Gave me a minivan, which I immediately crashed into the telephone. And that was the end of that relationship. Big ziti's just used to magically appear in front of our door. Who was dropping them off? The elves? The elves, it was people. Everybody did something to help get us through. And I got into college, and I met Amy, and she took over from there. I'm not making it a tree anymore, right? And that's what I got into. That's why I got into teaching and coaching. That's why all these gentlemen got into teaching and coaching. Or see Buddy in the back, that's what he's doing there, is to pay it back. Or excuse me, got to pay it forward. all right, and take care of the next generation. And one guy who really taught me about that, I just want to share this story with you, is about this guy, Herm. Okay, Herm's an amazing guy. He was almost my stepfather. Almost my stepfather. He started dating my mom, and at first I didn't like him. And I tried to fart a lot to make him go away, but he just farted right back. So, that didn't work. And he taught me Little League, he taught me everything. Okay? He gave me my first nickname, Golden Moose. Yeah, I used to be a hot blonde. The ladies in the back of the hot blonde. So that didn't last long. Oh, I'm sorry. But anyway, and he asked my mom to marry him, and she said no. And I was heartbroken. I'm like, that's it? They had a great relationship, but I think one Christmas he bought her a vacuum cleaner. So maybe take that note, don't buy a vacuum cleaner, and that was the end of that. And so then I'm heartbroken. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to lose another dad. And I met with her. I'm like, I'm going to lose you. He goes, no. Your mom broke up with me. I didn't break up with you. I'm still your friend. I'm still going to be here. And he came to every Little League game, he came to every football game, and he taught me so much about life and also football. We'd always go to the diner, Sable Townhouse Diner, Greek place, right? After our football games. And he'd sit there with me and he goes, Moosey, you didn't get enough pass rush. That was my nickname, Moosey. And you didn't get enough pass rush. He goes, get up. In the middle of the diner. He goes, move this table. We pick up a table, we move it out of the way. He goes, this is how you pass rush. And he fits into me and starts ragdolling me around. He's showing me the swim move in the middle of the freaking Greek diner. People are looking, because he was 6'5", 250, and he's ragdolling me around the diner. People are terrified. My mom's like hiding under the table. My sister thought it was great because she stole my pie. But that was the kind of guy he was. And he stuck through me by everything. And then one time, shortly after I married Amy, I get a phone call from him. He goes, I got good news and bad news. I go, what's up? He goes, my daughter, he had 2 kids from a previous marriage, is getting married. I go, great. He goes, you're invited. Fantastic. He goes, I also got terminal cancer. I got 2 months. And so this was our last time. And we get there to the wedding, and he comes right up to me and goes, hey, there's trouble. You got to watch my back. What the hell are you talking about? I go, what do you mean watch your back? It's your daughter's wedding. What could possibly happen? He goes, my brother, he had a bad relationship with his brother. He goes, my brother said he's coming to get me. He's going to tell you, you're dying. Your brother's going to fight you at your daughter's wedding. He goes, watch my back. And sure enough, here comes Sid. He starts running at Herm. Okay, and these are like men in their 60s, like about to, and I instinctively get between them. And Sid sees me and goes, oh, you brought your goon to fight your battles for you. And Herm comes with an overhand right that I'm like get hit in the head with a little bit because I'm standing between him. And then Sid charges me, and I go to push him, and he bumps into me, and his fake teeth fall out of his mouth. I go, what the hell are you doing? You're dying of cancer. You don't even have your own teeth. We're fighting at the wedding. What the hell's going on? And we break it up. And we go, take Herm off to the side room to calm down. I go, that was kind of cool that we got into a fight together. And I go, you know what? I really like that, Herm, because I finally got to pay you back a little bit. You were always there. You did a million things for me. What the hell did I ever do to you? He goes, I finally got to help you out a little bit in this little stupid way, fighting your brother at your daughter's wedding. And he goes, listen, that's not what it's about. You were never taught. I never took care of you so you could pay me back. I taught you how to be a man so you could go and take care of the next generation of kids. So when another kid like you shows up, who's lost, who needs help, you go and take care of that guy. And that was the message we got from her. And that's why we do this. And that's why we're here. And that's why we try to build a community. Because that's what it's all about. All right? When we're in trouble, and it's not just for the kids. Can adults get in trouble too? Do we need a shoulder to cry on? Do we need people to hug us when we're down? Whether we're 10, 20, 30, 50, 60, 70? We got to be there for each other. And that's what I'm hoping to do here in Weston football as we move forward. Are you with me? Yes. All right, thank you.